financing your next billion gain insights into successful engagements with venture capitalists and investors. Get ahead of industry trends, hear from industry leaders, influencers, founders, policymakers, and governments. Stay in the know on how to finance your next billion.
Okay, welcome everyone once again to FYNB Talks, and we are live with our guest, Jacque Zoccoli. And once again, we're here with the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. It is the 69th convening of our status, and this time we're actually going to be going over and reviewing the Beijing Accords. What information came out of there, and where are we now? As 2030 is the time that we actually have to have all our goals implemented. And so what we want to do, you always want to take a stop at least 5 and 10 year intervals before. So here we are at 5 years prior, and we want to know where we are and how we are doing. And so that's why we're really coming to women and asking them to give us their status, their perspective from the various businesses that they have, from from what they may be doing as far as their humanitarian work, as their nonprofit work, any type of area that they're working in, or that they're working in a career, whatever they have, we want to know, or they may be in government and legislative positions. We want to know, what is that status? What does that look like? And where are we going forward? Jacque Zoccoli, this is a woman of many different talents, and she has done so many things, beginning from what I know from the Peace Corps, and I'm pretty sure she did things long before that. But literally as a young, a teenager coming into her early 20s, working with the Peace Corps and going to Africa. And she'll touch on that a little bit, all the way to her work globally. Now she has a global networking organization that she heads up. And I would love for her to tell you a little bit about that as well. But I'm just going to give you a little bit about what she's going to bring to us. She's going to talk about a momentum for change. And that is so appropriate, given that we're trying to get a read and a bead on where we are with the Beijing Accord, with the status of women in these next 5 years. So basically, you think about it, these 5 years are like we're at that end of the marathon, where these are the last 5 miles of the way that we have to go. So we've got to, this is the all or nothing, all or everything. You got to bring everything you have to the table and put it on the table. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jacque Zoccoli and let her introduce herself, and then we'll go into her topics. Jacque, good morning, and thank you so much for being a guest on FYNB Talks.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. I always enjoy being with you. You bring out all kinds of insights that I love to play with, and that we can both learn from together. Yeah, it's been quite a journey for me, as you say, from the Peace Corps, which really pretty much shaped my entire life, actually. It took 50 years from then. Yeah, I know, older than dirt. 50 years from then for me to realize my global reach and to actually see the ability that I had to change things. So, yeah, I'm very delighted to be here. I have lots of recollections, and it's the memories that do keep us alive. It's the memories that keep us going forward, though we have to, at some point, give up those memories to a degree so that we can actually be in the moment. And that's what I'll be speaking about.
Well, good. I'd love to, let's delve into the memories, the looking back. So many people have said that in order for us to move forward, we have to, have to take a pause and kind of really look back. So what are we doing? What is that? We hear that you have to look back to go forward. You hear that all the time, and as a quote. And so what does that really mean, to just the layman? What are you saying to the 12-year-old girl? What are you saying to the 18-year-old young woman, the 25-year-old, the 50-year-old, the 70-year-old? Look back. So what, they obviously the 70-year-old has more to look back at, say, than the 12-year-old, but the 12-year-old obviously has something to look back at. So what are we looking at? What are we looking for?
Well, I think it's really important, no matter what your age, to be able to see your. I love the thought. A friend of mine, Liz Kearney, used to tell me all of this. You are raised by what's happening in your world at the time. I mean, that's not really an astute observation, except it really is. The people that are the younger ones, all they know essentially are their family and those that guide them with their beliefs. The older ones kind of respect that and they go ahead. But the most important is for us to look at our past, no matter what age it is, because Yvonne, I'm sure that you will agree with me, it tends to repeat itself if it's not paid attention to and things change. So
Hmm.
even though that young person doesn't have the gift of knowing the past, I think to a large degree it's important for us to, even though we weren't in that past, even though we weren't in that war or whatever it was, is to see what we did as a culture, a world culture, what we did to respond to that, what worked, what didn't work, and to make sure that it either is repeated or is not repeated. And I think a lot of times we're not paying attention to that. Now you get to the teenagers, the people that are going to really shape our world in the near future. Um, they don't have that past. Many of them don't respect that because they're on their own path. And to be fair, they're going to go in a world we have no clue what it's going to look like. We don't have anything that said, in the past, this and this. There's a totally different world. And I don't think we've ever had this before because of technology, because of AI, because of all of that. They are crafting, literally crafting someplace we have never been. And when we realize that, and when we give them the gifts and resources that they need to craft that, then we have something very recognizable. So, though they don't have the memory, they will have the skills to move forward. Now, one comment about that, and I find this very interesting. I've been told, and I don't know, maybe you were the one that told me, it could have been because you're so brilliant, that from anyone born from 2000 on will not have the life expectancy someone as myself has.
What would their life expectancy be?
Less.
Okay. I thought with all the longevity drugs and, we're trying to eat better and healthier, that our life expectancy was actually getting longer, but you're saying it's
One
getting.
would think, no. The concept is that they will live not as long as we for various things that are extreme in our environment unless we change them. So that has been a word that I had absorbed and realized that we need to do everything we can to preserve that will preserve them, even though they are the pioneers. They are the ones that are out there changing because we don't know all the pieces that they're putting together. They are crafting in their brains and in their existence new ways to do things, but it's important that we bring the past and what didn't work to a certain degree to them so that they have enough to be able to go forward.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, and if we look at this from, say, history teaches us, So what you're saying is when we're looking back at history, we have to give it a certain amount of respect and admonition in the fact that this this was you, this was the you collectively. This was us then, and here we are now. So how did we get from there to here? Because when we look back at historical facts, historical artifacts, or what have you, we see a lot of things that show us a. It's almost like it's a past that is very reminiscent of what our future is about to look like. If we go way back, into the ancient past, we can see artifacts that show that they had ships, they had spaceships, they had technologies. Obviously they had they had to have some type of technology to be able to build the pyramids, to be able to build all those huge
Yeah.
stone,
Yeah.
uh, monolithic type statues and houses and monuments or what have you that we don't even have today.
Mhm.
So it would almost, if one were says, standing afar off and looking, you almost would say that our past is catching up with. We are going into our past. Although we're going forward, in some instances, it appears as though we're going into our past. And if you're saying now that you have a thought that, or maybe I'm sure, pretty sure that's based on documented information you have, that the expectancy is getting lesser. Well, in the past, the life expectancy was not that long. It was not as long as it had gotten to. So therefore, we really need to revisit this past with a more microscopic eye, if I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. We have to really look and see what happened and didn't happen, and to really give those resources to our youth, to be able to craft a new future. That, as I say, we really don't have. We have we have the resources to give them to be strong. They have the insight and the education that is, it's strong in certain areas, but it's not as deep as ours in experience. So I think it's something that can be overcome. I do think so. I think if, and that's our future. That's my momentum part. But the point is, I think we do need to pay attention to the past at whatever degree, so that we don't repeat it or repeat things that are worthy of um, of actually having a more positive existence. And we're doing that today. I mean, in spades. I mean, every day is a miracle. As far as
Right.
I'm concerned, every day is a miracle. So I can get into that, but
By 2050, our planet will be a vastly different place. By 2050, artificial intelligence will be everywhere. AI-driven stores will allow you to purchase goods without cashiers or waiting lines. AI will diagnose and treat patients, manage transportation, and analyze massive quantities of data. AI chatbots and voice recognition systems will sound like and behave just like real people. AI will be implemented into robots. By 2050, robot dogs and other pets will serve as companions. Robots will dominate factories and begin to serve as teachers, cooks, pharmacists, law enforcement officers, athletes, and other professionals. In 2050, universal translators will remove all language barriers, and voice recognition will be ubiquitous. Hundreds of sensors will be installed in our clothes, homes, and overall environment to monitor our well-being and improve our lives. Computing will change. By 2050, we may run on quantum computers. Based on the properties of quantum physics, quantum computers could deliver massive leaps in computing power, outstripping any current transistor-based models. AI and computers will integrate into humans. Brain chips like Elon Musk's Neuralink will treat neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, and blindness. These brain chips will allow people to control computers and prosthetics with no physical interaction. By 2050, we may be controlling things with our minds and communicating through brain signals. By 2050, robotic prosthetics may be stronger and more advanced than our own biological ones. Prosthetic eyes and ears will enter the market, curing blindness and deafness. And in 30 years, like AI, virtual reality will be everywhere. People will try on clothes in virtual reality closets, and holograms will bring FaceTime to a new level. VR platforms will allow you to move around while staying still. We will be able to travel the world and experience life on other planets, all from home.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it, is that if we don't give them the tools of the learning from the past, you're right, it will repeat itself. And it's a matter of making sure that doesn't happen. We evolve. I love that word, evolve. It brings a wonderful feeling of getting through. Of the fact that, yeah, okay, that's a stage we had to have to get to here. We had to give up the good to get the best. It's good. It's all right. We'll make it through this. So evolve is what I like. But you're right. We have to be able to share that, so they absorb it to whatever degree, so that they will make better decisions in our evolution and keep
I'm gonna
us
throw
going.
out one more point on this topic, and that is this: are we hitting the same wall that our ancestors hit? When I look back across the different cultures around the world, I see a stop at the same point. I see where civilizations, come, civilizations thrive, and then civilizations they basically they fall in on themselves, with the the overextension of power, the overreach of territory, and then those civilizations they go away. New civilizations come up, they thrive, and they expand, and then they fall in on themselves with the overreaching of power, the overreaching of expansion. So where do we got to stop this? It's like you're on a merry-go-round. When I keep looking, it's like we're on a merry-go-round, and we're trying to get off. When do we just that? I think that was in the 60s. It was a movie or something where it says, "Stop the world, I want to get off."
It's a good question. It's a good question, Yvonne. It really is a good question. And you're right. It does seem to go that way because the very earlier cultures, were really far more advanced than we are today in so many ways. And it makes you wonder, how do we do to stop that wall? How do we actually, and I think it's what I said, it's preparing our youth to maybe see that wall and to realize, well, the whole thing to me, and you won't be surprised, the whole thing to me is collaboration.
Okay, so we collaborate.
That's the answer. That is the answer to the whole thing. And I believe that to my core. To my core, it starts with listening. Very, very important to listen. And then to realize the commonalities. That's really very important. And we can do that in cultures all over the world that we have not. And now we can, because we can talk to cultures. I'm in lots of countries all over the world every day. And so it's commonalities, and that's really part of my 5C formula. Commonalities is the first C. And the second is to communicate that you have the commonalities. You can't just sit there with them. The third is to commit to work together. We're gonna work together. I'm gonna commit to work with you, which is a real hard one. That's where it tends to stop. Then to contribute to that relationship, actually give something of yourself, and keeping your own expertise without judgment gets us to collaboration. And to me, that's the glow, the guided love of wholeness. And that's totally what has to happen, is that we need to base on commonalities by listening and then communicating what those commonalities are. And that's the strong bond that makes relationships grow. So in the past, did the cultures listen? Did they bring out the commonalities? Enough to get going, maybe. Did they commit to each other? You know, there are a lot of little spots we can see some downfalls here. You know, we can see some breakups in that whole formula that didn't really work.
I don't think, I wouldn't say they didn't work. I would say they didn't do them.
Yeah.
They did not do the communication, and those different things began to break down. And so therefore, when they break down, now what, like you said, the commonality becomes those bridges and those connection points. Those connection points began to fray and unravel. And this is why you have people, at such a distance away, from each other. And not just that, just such a distance away from, what's common. If it's a waterway, then we all, I look at Victoria Falls in Africa, sitting between two beautiful countries, and to this day cannot come collaboratively, as you have just outlined, to those points, to make use of that, and understanding that fall is falling, at such a high density that it could literally power all of Africa, not just those two countries. But yet here we are having load shedding when we're trying to communicate with them unnecessarily. So yes, those types of things, like that, when you break in and you put those divisions there, you inhibit where the people can go.
What happens when a group of the world's greatest minds gifted with wealth beyond our imagination buys a sprawling waterfront property in Toronto? They make plans for a $14.3 billion futuristic city, that's what. Sidewalk Labs released its master innovation and development plans to turn a chunk of Toronto's Lake Ontario shoreline into the most futuristic city in the world. It would result in over 93,000 jobs and a better standard of living for its residents. And today, we're going to take a peek inside. Welcome back to our channel. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a video from us. Google X Sidewalk Smart City.
Yeah.
So how is it then that you've looked in one of your points that you bring out, and that is that it's kind of like brings us right to that second bullet point that you brought out. How can we live more in the moment and relish the now? Just armed with just what we have talked about, and we need to live now. We need to be in this moment, and we need to be able to relish it. Well, how do we relish it if we're saying something's wrong with it, or something's not necessarily wrong, but something's not right with it? How do you tell a person you need to relish this?
Yeah, it's difficult in a lot of situations, and it can be at various levels as far as I'm concerned. It can be at a survival level, when you're in the moment, when you are able to literally look around you and be in that capsule of awareness. That's what my new book's about, the excitement of awareness. It's of being totally aware of the wonder that you have. This morning I was taking a shower and I said to myself, hot water in the shower. What a joy. I was 2 years without that. And the thought is that there are so many things to get wrapped up in those moments, to get wrapped up in the abundance that is about us. That's the most important thing is, yes, that's a survival mode, but it's also a thrive mode. When you really realize that which you have, and that's what you're focusing on, your brain doesn't go anywhere else. That's where you are. And to realize and to know that every day, that to me, I'm here on a path. The path is really not mine. It is, and it isn't. It's kind of predestined in my world. My God put me through this thing, put me here for a reason. And though I constantly make him laugh by giving him a schedule, the point is that I am here from point A to point B and in good health, thank you, God, because I have something to do in this world that's important. And I think when people realize that, then they begin to look at the gratitude and the wonderful things that do exist that we take for granted. And that's important to get us to the next, which is the momentum.
Okay. Gratitude. Gratitude will elevate your gratitude will change your attitude, and it will elevate you wherever you're going. Having that gratitude, like you said, just relishing in the moment of, fine, I have that, which I have not had, even if it's just breath in the body, that having that gratitude for that, because there's so many that didn't wake up today, and so many that will go to sleep tonight and sleep the sleep of 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So what does momentum, where do we go from here? What, why, who, and for, what's our reason? What's our rationale? What's our compulsion? What's going to compel us to do?
Well, when everyone realizes with the gratitude thing that my gratitude drives my attitude and thus my accomplishments, when they realize that there is an awareness, I would hope, and in most cases it is, that you can make a positive change. You can be part of change in a positive way because of the skills that you have. Now, every day I literally experience a miracle. Besides the fact I got up, is the fact that there are people around me who literally dwell and spend their time not only on the gratitude, but on things that are going to cause change in a positive direction. And that's what I have determined that that's what I'm going to do in this world, is to do that and to find as many resources as I can, bring them all together so they communicate, they contribute, all of those things to work with the underserved population. Now, I've had people that say to me, gosh, I'd really love to do the things you're doing. And I think to myself, well, do them. Do them. It's a matter of looking and seeing what cause you wish to work with. And there are more than enough for an entire world of causes to work with, and decide you want to commit and contribute with others to make that happen. So the sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned in creativity of finding things that are worthy of working on ahead of time, or what we can do ahead of time. And so I have spent my life, I'll be very honest with you, I have spent my life in that mode. Well, it took me 50 years, but the point is, I have spent that mode versus dwelling as much as you do, Yvonne, in the history, in the specifics. I'll be very frank about that. My world is the positive that I create, and the see what I can do in the change in the positive. That's how I operate. And when I can see this person needs to meet this person because I know, I can feel that spark. I can feel that outcome. I can visually see it. So I'm compelled to get them together. And that's the way that I work. I don't dwell on what didn't work. I know that this will work. Now it's convincing them that this will work. And typically I'm able to do that. And a lot of them will say, well, Jackie sent me and said, we got to get together. Yeah. So now I do more of that. I say, okay, the reasons that you are put together are, now go make it happen. And then we're going to carry that over into another country. Okay. We're going to be able to help Lake Victoria because Lake Victoria is also, could be concept that's happening in the Amazon too. Okay, so let's work here and get this really strong, and then we'll duplicate it over it. I mean, there are so many ways to create miracles every
Right.
day. And when it doesn't appear there are enough, I have divine intervention, which I, to this day, still cannot figure out. I'll be in the middle of a Zoom call. This is a perfect example. I'm talking to the guy that I'm mentoring in Uganda, who has named his first child after me, Jacque Zoccoli. Anyhow, we're talking. And he says, well, you know, my fishery in Uganda, I've been selling things into the Congo. And he goes on and on about this. And I said, did you think about Kenya? And he said, well, no, I hadn't thought about Kenya. Who appears in my waiting room? Derek from Kenya. I said, how did you do that, God? How did you do that? I don't care. Welcome, Derek. Divine intervention at so many stages in my world. It's just that I had to put that in, that little piece right there, and then it came out. So when I get people together, it's let's get the vision. Let's look and see. And that's what's so exciting when I've been working with Carol Witt with Young Entrepreneurs Alliance. And she mentors young people and helps them to build their life skills, is that she gets them to figure beyond what probably 80% of our world is suffering, which is the survival mode. They've never been given permission to have a vision. They've never been allowed to think, what if? I'd love to see. And when you open that door, it's an entirely different world. And they come back and think, I didn't know I could do this. Yes, you can. Pay attention. So that's the future. That's the momentum. And there are youth, we're doing training centers. I have a global impact network. The Global Impact Network is a network with 4 pillars: literacy, wellness, environment, and employment. And through the nonprofits and the people in each of those areas and speaking engagements every Tuesday, we're able to bring resources to the underserved populations. And that effort is so strong in my heart. Nothing's going to get in my way. There's just nothing. And I keep building people in here that they listen to each other. The Gin Challenge is that you need to have a project, you need to have a positive impact, and it needs to be sustainable. So we're getting learning centers all over Africa. She has about 20 of them now that teach all of this and help them to work together in collaboration to become the glow, the guided love of wholeness.
I like that. And yes, and there were so many nuggets in there that in what you just said that we could very, very easily pull out. And one of the things that, I did want to kind of, key in on, for our audience, and that is when we have a vision and it's somehow we got off the mark of teaching the children or teaching just the world at large to visualize, but we moved over to have. If you will, if you look, we became those, we wanted to have things, we wanted to collect things, we wanted to, have more, we wanted to, have more abundance. And we stopped visualizing what, could be and what this future could look like. And we started collecting things, literally became hoarders, so to speak. And we really have more than our fair share and more than enough. But yet we think we have so little, so we tend to attach and work ourselves to get some more. Here we go with the more having more. And I think that amassing up, that buildup of wealth is the wrong direction. It's the wrong thought because we're not building up a wealth that is sustainable. We're not building up the wealth of the culture, the wealth of the community, just the wealth of the people, and truly sharing those things that we all know. We're not trading information. We're getting, we say we have data and then someone has it, then, well, you can't get my data. I can't get your data. So I don't know what you're really doing over there. You don't know what I'm really doing. You can tell me when I see all these different weather patterns and weather changes. Well, the weather doesn't start in your neighborhood, doesn't start in your locality. That was that wind, was that trade wind. Those are trade winds. And if you remember, even here in the United States, the newscasters would always talk about the trade winds and how the winds, coming from the east and blowing to the west. And so we could anticipate, a particular type of weather that was going to come, or a different type of climate change. Now, all we talk about is what's happening in our little area. And in our country, and we don't equate that to, well, this is going on this is precipitated from around the world. We're not thinking in those terms. We're thinking, and so you're right, you're absolutely right, that vision, we have come away from that vision. um I would like to definitely, Jackie, we could go on. We could go on.
I know, we go on
Definitely
forever.
want to have you back on FYNB Talks to talk more in depth about Gen and about, bring, just what it's doing and bringing those different people to the table, with sustainability projects and what have you that can actually make a difference in the globally. And, so they really understand what it is you're asking for and what it is that they can do. And sometimes, people just that, a little explanation can go a long way. And then it's, oh, okay, now I see what it is she's looking for. Yes, I can do that. So that would be good. Do you have something more you want to share with the audience? Here, we're talking to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, 69. Do you have something, that you want to share, you want to offer, to them, coming from you or coming from one of your organizations? Uh, please go ahead.
Well, I think my formula makes sense. And that's what I wish that people would do, is to recognize the commonalities, to listen, to recognize those commonalities, and communicate those commonalities. And when we really look at each other's backgrounds and we look at where you've been and where you're going, there are far more commonalities than there are differences. And it's a matter of celebrating our differences that is so important. Our uniqueness, to celebrate it, because we know the commonalities. And those are the core things that I wish for us to do as a world. And not only that, but to work together then toward a common collaboration. What is it that we can commonly, what is it that united we can create with a vision that we have created together? That is the whole thing, and collaboration is the answer as far as I'm concerned. And yet it has to be a positive impact and sustainable. And as Yvonne said, it's so hard to have because we get to a wall. We're smart enough as a culture. We can figure it out. We have enough tools for sustainability. We really do. It's putting our brains together to actually make that happen. And I love the quote by Gary Spence, is to be open to wonder rather than closed by belief.
Financing your next $1 billion? Contact us to be a guest. Join us for the next show.